Alrighty, so I wanted to get you guys a video recorded. Not so much for the lecture per se, although we'll talk about this in the lecture. I just wanted to get it done for you guys for, like an 8-minute video for this. It's Wednesday, so I didn't want to do it while I was trying to capture, run Blender, do teams. I figured it'd be a little bit better to kind of try to do this with just, Blender and the Capture Studio open. So what I want to do is I want to show you guys something about tiling textures, right? So the biggest thing is you're probably going to want to go find a texture. And now you could, of course, do this through textures.com. But sometimes you can just do a search too, like tileable, like metal wall texture or something like that, right? You can also look for something called seamless, right? And really you're just looking for a texture that looks like it repeats well. Right? Like you see that looks like it repeats well, that looks like it repeats well, so you're looking for textures that look like they repeat well and that are going to have that science fiction kind of setup to it. This looks like it might tile well, but I'm not sure. I'd have to double check with that. But you're really looking for something that looks like it repeats quite nicely. Like this one wouldn't, right? This one wouldn't necessarily. So you might want to look for tileable or seamless metal wall texture. There are some good seamless ones on textures.com. Because in this case, for our room, we're not actually going to paint textures, right? For a lot of other stuff, we are. We want to go over some material stuff using stencils, things like that, getting practice with those things. But for this one, we just want to explore tileable textures, right? Because often for game environment modeling, not the furniture per se, but like walls and floors, particularly if a building is large and it's got lots of bricks in it and, roads, you don't really make fully unique textures for that whole asset because that'll be a giant texture, right? So what you're really looking at for those is a texture that repeats, right? So that way you can have a smaller texture that's already set to go that you don't even have to paint, but it can be tiled, right? And I wanted to show you that. That's what I wanted to make this video for you guys for today. So for the room itself, you don't really have to do this per se. I do quickly want to separate these out because I've just found sometimes trying to assign materials to specific polygons is a little weird in Blender. So I do want to, in this case, kind of separate out my floor. All right, so I'm just going to select the faces for my floor in modeling menu. Remember, use right click. And of course, you can go to separate selection. And that will make it its own object. So the floor is now its own object, right? And you see, even in the UV editing, right, when we go to that, 3, those UVs are still there. So nice thing is you can separate and your UVs are still good. In this case, I'm going to go to the shading menu. Or the shading workspace, because I just want to get rid of this checker texture board, right? We don't really need this anymore, it's just for the distortion, so I'll select that. At this point, if I want, I could rename this texture and call it, say, floor, right? There we go. And there, now we have, so here we've got our floor texture, and that's really what we have in here, just our floor texture. So you can easily rename that for whatever you want it to be. And in this case, what I wanted to do is I wanted to plug a texture. Now, of course, I could plug it in right through here. I could plug it in through nodes. In this case, I'm just going to plug it in here. I find, it's a little bit easier if you haven't done it that much to do it this way. Instead of using shader trees. So I'm going to click on the base color kind of yellow dot. And I'm going to pick image texture again like we've been doing before. And there's our image texture for that specific area. Now in this case, you'll notice there's the open area. It's also right here, so I can click on open. And I've actually downloaded a couple here, so I'm going to grab a floor. There we go. And you'll see there's now a floor texture on that one. Now this one I'm going to go up to here because I want to apply a new texture to this, right? So remember, you can easily go right here or right here too. So remember that you can do all that over there. So I'll click on this one. There's a new texture. We'll call this a wall, right? Or walls. There we go. And now you'll see there's actually 2 available, floor and walls, right? So there we go. And in this case, what I want to do with walls is you'll see it's kind of already got that plugin plugged in there because it's based on the original material. So what I can do is I can just, go to kind of the open image. And I could find, say, kind of one of the walls. I think it was that one I was using. And there we go. And you can see we have 2 different materials on these 2 different objects. It's kind of separated. It makes it a little simpler to kind of do for us, right? Save that really quick. Remember, it's always a good idea to go File, External Data, Automatically Pack in a Blender file. So that when you're saving, it saves these in your Blender file so that you can just move that around. So now we see that we separated these into separate objects. And you can do it for the ceiling, of course, as well. I'm not going to do it for this one because we probably won't see the ceiling that much. We can see that we've got a floor and we've got a kind of wall texture on this. And we just kind of created different materials, right? You can create multiple materials for the objects you have. And, we just did do like things like that new, right? In this case, what I want to do is I want to go back to the UV editing menu. Now, you could do this through the shader nodes and all that stuff, but sometimes I find it a little bit, you don't have as much precise control over each little shell or island, and I find it's a little easier working with the context of UV editing. So in this case, I'm going to, make sure I've got the room selected, and I'm going to go through face mode, right? Control A to select all, so we can kind of see all of our stuff here, right? All of our UVs. And remember, now that I've got my cursor over the UV editor here, I have my selection tools here, and the same quick keys work: vertex, edge, face, object, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, and they basically do very similar things to here, but you'll notice the object one kind of works for these little UV islands. These are our walls. Now here's the thing about tiling textures. Usually you want your UVs to be within the quadrants, and you don't want to move or change them once you painted a texture because you made that unique texture for that unique asset. But if it's tileable textures where you didn't paint this based on anything, you just found a cool, repeatable tile, right, basically, you can easily just scale your UVs up for this wall, and you'll see that all of a sudden, if I zoom in here, that's repeating. And so this is going to give us a great, easy way to kind of come in here. All right, and I can come in here and I can just kind of start to tile these textures, right, to get a nice little repeat on them. There we go. And obviously I'm not trying to make this absolutely perfect or the best I could, but I'm trying to show you the idea, the concept behind this, right, that you can actually take these textures and you can easily scale your UVs up past the grid size, right, past the grid size. And what this automatically is doing is it's having your textures repeat. Now here you can see that these are kind of on their side. This is why I like doing a 3D one, right? Because in particular, if we have our text tools add-on, right, we can go to UV layout here, and I can easily have this rotate 90 degrees, rotate it again, and you see how now that lines up with these? And you can easily kind of hit W for move this down a bit, and you see how you can actually line this up fairly well, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm kind of, just showing you the concepts or ideas. But this is one of the reasons why I like scaling UVs, because you have control over each shell. If I did a generic node for this, it's going to do it uniformly for everything. Whereas if I kind of use the actual islands, right, I can control them on a per island basis. And this is one of the neat things about text tools. Not only do we have that checkerboard one,